All right, let's get started. The Western Alliance, NATO. Let's start with the elephant in the room, NATO. This is the heavyweight champion of military alliances, and it's been around since 1949. We're talking about 32 countries right now, primarily from Europe and North America. How NATO actually works. NATO is based on a simple principle. An attack on one member is an attack on all. This is called Article 5. It's why the U.S. is legally obligated to defend, say, Bulgaria if Russia attacks it. That's binding. That's not negotiable. No other alliance has this level of legal enforcement. NATO operates through a collective defense structure. There's an integrated military command, joint operational planning, and unified defense spending. In 2024, NATO members collectively spent over $1.3 trillion on defense, more than 55% of global military spending worldwide. The U.S. alone contributed $877 billion. Why this matters? NATO isn't just military, it's political. When you join NATO, you're adopting Western democratic standards, theoretically, committing to the rule of law, and aligning your foreign policy with Western interests. This is why expansion into Eastern Europe has been so controversial. Countries like Poland, Hungary, and the Baltics joined because they wanted security guarantees after the Soviet Union's collapse. Recent evolution. NATO is expanding beyond traditional defense. It's now involved in cybersecurity, climate security, and emerging technology. In 2025, NATO launched an innovation fund to invest in dual-use technologies. The Ukraine war reinvigorated NATO's purpose. It proved that Article 5 still matters. Finland joined in 2023, Sweden in 2024, and Turkey remained a strategic, if unpredictable, member.
The rising economic bloc, BRICS. Now, flip the script entirely. BRICS started in 2009 as something completely different from NATO. It wasn't about military collective defense, it was about economics. What BRICS actually is? BRICS began with 5 countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The idea? Pool the economic power of the global South to create an alternative to Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank. By 2024, BRICS expanded dramatically. Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE joined to bringing membership to 10 countries. These are not democracies necessarily meeting at a table of shared values. They're pragmatists with shared interests, less Western economic dominance. Economic firepower. BRICS represents about 3.5 billion people, roughly 45% of the global population. In 2024, BRICS accounted for approximately 25% of global exports. The bloc's economic growth rate averages 4% annually, compared to NATO countries' 1 to 2.5%. China's military budget alone reached approximately $314 billion in 2024, second only to the United States. But here's the critical difference. BRICS doesn't have Article 5. There's no binding mutual defense clause. India refuses to commit to it because India values strategic autonomy and doesn't want to be locked into China's geopolitical battles. China and India have an active border dispute. Pakistan and India are nuclear-armed rivals. BRICS is united by economic interests, not military collective defense. The de-dollarization dream. The big game changer? De-dollarization. BRICS is pushing alternatives to the US dollar for international trade. They're promoting trade in the Chinese yuan and Indian rupee. The BRICS New Development Bank, often called the BRICS Bank, provides an alternative to World Bank financing. The contingent reserve arrangement offers an alternative to IMF bailouts. In 2025, this is accelerating. BRICS leaders called for UN Security Council reform to give the Global South more representation. They're establishing parallel financial institutions specifically designed to bypass Western sanctions mechanisms. The problem? But BRICS has massive internal contradictions. China's GDP is $18 trillion. Ethiopia's is under $200 billion. Russia is isolated by sanctions. Brazil and India have different strategic priorities. They often disagree publicly, especially on Russia's war in Ukraine. Many BRICS members still do more trade with Western countries than with each other. Economic decoupling from the West is way harder than the rhetoric suggests.
The Eurasian Security Organization, SCO. You've probably never heard of this one, but it might be more important than BRICS. Meet the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO. What SCO is. Founded in 2021, the SCO started as a regional security forum in Central Asia. But by 2025, it's become something massive. 10 members now: China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Belarus, which joined in 2023. Geographic significance. The SCO spans Eurasia. We're talking about territory from Eastern Europe through Central Asia to the Pacific. It's literally the geographic backbone of China's Belt and Road Initiative. The SCO provides the institutional framework for infrastructure development, cross-border cooperation, and regional security. How it works. Unlike NATO's integrated military command, the SCO avoids NATO-like structures. Members actively resist becoming a traditional military alliance. Instead, the SCO focuses on counterterrorism cooperation. SCO has a regional anti-terrorist structure, border security and dispute resolution, crucial because India-China, India-Pakistan, and Tajikistan-Kyrgyzstan have active border tensions. Economic cooperation through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Regional Development Bank, coordinated messaging on multipolarity and opposition to Western unilateralism. The game changer. The Tianjin Summit, September 2025. At the 25th SCO Summit in Tianjin, China, in September 2025, something significant happened. Leaders issued the Tianjin Declaration, calling for equitable and representative multipolarity as the defining feature of the future international system. This wasn't accidental wording. This was a direct countermessage to the U.S.-led unipolar order. The declaration called for reforms in the UN and IMF to give Global South countries more representation. The SCO is now openly positioning itself as an alternative governance model. The problem: the SCO has deep internal fractures. India-China tensions could collapse the organization. Russia and China coordinate closely, but India values strategic autonomy. Pakistan and India are nuclear rivals sitting in the same institution. The SCO lacks NATO's enforcement mechanisms. It can issue joint communiques, but it can't actually compel member states to comply with unified policies.
The Indo-Pacific Democratic Alliance, the Quad. Here's where the competition intensifies. If BRICS and SCO represent the Global South and Eurasia, the Quad represents the Western response in Asia-Pacific. What the Quad is. The Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, formed in 2004 in response to the Indian Ocean tsunami, revived in 2017 as a geopolitical tool. 4 countries: the United States, Australia, India, and Japan. These are like-minded democracies, as the official language goes, but it's more complicated than that. India isn't a traditional U.S. ally. Japan has its own regional concerns. Australia is geographically closer to China. Yet they've found common ground: concerns about China's rise, commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, or FOIP, and maritime security. Strategic minilateralism. The Quad is what analysts call a strategic minilateral, a grouping of 3 to 6 states focused on practical security cooperation. It's not a formal military alliance like NATO. It lacks Article 5. It lacks integrated command structures. But the coordination is real. The Quad is focused on maritime domain awareness, disaster relief and humanitarian operations, cybersecurity cooperation, emerging technologies like AI, semiconductors, and 5G, climate and infrastructure, public goods provision. In January 2025, Quad foreign ministers met in Washington and reaffirmed commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, while opposing any unilateral actions that seek to change the status quo by force or coercion. The India factor. India's participation is the wild card. New Delhi absolutely refuses to join an explicit anti-China military alliance. India has border conflicts with China and maintains strategic partnerships with Russia and Iran. India wants to balance China, not encircle it. This is why the Quad is diplomatic and technological, not explicitly military.
The submarine deal,
AUKUS. If the Quad is soft power, AUKUS is the hard power response. What AUKUS is: announced in September 2021 by Australia, the United States, and the United Kingdom, it's a defense technology partnership focused on developing nuclear-powered submarines for Australia using U.S. and British technology. This is enormous. Nuclear submarine technology is among the world's most tightly guarded secrets. The U.S. has never shared this technology outside of the U.K. That it's now going to Australia signals serious geopolitical commitments. Strategic purpose. AUKUS is explicit deterrence against China. China has been modernizing its military at rapid speed. The South China Sea is increasingly militarized. Taiwan is a potential flashpoint. AUKUS submarines give Australia, and by extension the U.S.-led alliance, deep water surveillance and strike capability in a region where China increasingly dominates. The controversy. AUKUS angered the EU, especially France, which lost a submarine contract with Australia, concerned Indonesia and Malaysia about nuclear proliferation, and made China call it Cold War mentality, outdated thinking. But Australia's strategic calculus is straightforward. China is increasingly assertive, traditional alliances matter, and technological edge is survival. AUKUS is not yet a formal military alliance like NATO. It's more like a coalition with pre-existing alliance commitments. US-Australia through ANZUS, US-UK through NATO. But the degree of defense integration suggests it could evolve into something more alliance-like.
Regional powerhouses: AU, Arab League, and ASEAN. Now let's zoom out to the regional level. These aren't global alliances, but they shape their regions profoundly. The African Union. Established in 2001, succeeding the Organization of African Unity, founded in 1963, the AU has 54 member states. That's essentially every country in Africa. It's massive in membership, but weak in enforcement. The AU has called for greater African representation in global institutions. It's partnering with the Arab League on regional conflicts: Sudan, Somalia, Libya. It's coordinating with BRICS for economic partnership. But the AU lacks real enforcement power. It can mediate disputes, but it can't compel compliance. Internal conflicts between regional powers like Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa limit its effectiveness. The Arab League. Founded in 1945 in Cairo with just 6 members, Egypt, Iraq, Transjordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen, the Arab League has grown to 22 member states. Its purpose: coordinate political, cultural, economic, and social programs across the Arab world. But historically, the Arab League has achieved relatively limited cooperation. Intra-Arab conflicts are profound. Saudi Arabia and Iran compete for influence, though they signed a diplomatic agreement in 2023. Sunni-Shia tensions cut across the League. Yemen, Syria, and Libya are active conflict zones where Arab states are on opposite sides. The League did establish a joint Arab force in 2015 to combat extremism, but it's largely ineffective because participation is voluntary and intervention happens only at member request. It's more of a coordinating body than an enforcement mechanism. ASEAN. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, founded 1967 with 5 members, now 10, operates on consensus and non-interference principles. ASEAN includes Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Brunei, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia. ASEAN's power is its centrality to Southeast Asian institutions. It anchors the ASEAN Regional Forum, ARF, the East Asia Summit, EAS, and the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus. Crucially, ASEAN tries to maintain strategic autonomy. It wants to engage with all major powers, US, China, Russia, without being locked into any bloc. But this creates tensions. The Quad and AUKUS are seen by ASEAN as potentially destabilizing. ASEAN members fear encirclement of China, leading to regional militarization. Yet they're also nervous about Chinese assertiveness in the South China Sea. ASEAN is trying to balance, and that's becoming increasingly difficult.
Economic integration: Mercosur, RCEP, and CPTPP. Beyond security alliances, economic blocs are reshaping trade. Mercosur, the Southern Common Market, is established in 1991 by treaty between Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay.
Bolivia and Chile have associate status. This is a customs union, internal free trade, common external tariff. Mercosur generates approximately 5.7 trillion nominal GDP annually as of 2023, making it the world's fifth largest economy. Brazil dominates economically, but the bloc has achieved real regional integration, free movement of people, unified trade policy, common currency proposals, though never fully implemented. But Mercosur is struggling. Venezuela was suspended in 2016 for undemocratic governance. Trade tensions between members are rising. Brazil under Lula has been pushing EU-Mercosur trade deals, but the EU hesitates over Amazon deforestation concerns. Meanwhile, Russia and China are courting Mercosur for their own economic blocs. RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, signed in 2020, implemented January 2022. This is huge. 10 ASEAN members plus China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. That's 2.2 billion people and about 30% of global GDP. RCEP is explicitly designed to reduce China's economic isolation and deepen Asia-Pacific integration. It's not as formal as Mercosur, but it reduces tariffs on thousands of products and establishes common trade rules. It's the world's largest free trade agreement by GDP. CPTPP, the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, signed in 2018, amended 2025 after the U.S. withdrew under Trump, now includes Japan, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, Chile, Mexico, and Peru. The UK is joining in 2025. CPTPP is explicitly democratic-leaning, focused on high labor and environmental standards. It's the Western response to Chinese-dominated trade frameworks. The inclusion of Asian democracies, Japan, South Korea didn't join yet, shows it's designed to integrate non-Chinese Asian economies into Western trade architecture.
And that's all for now. If you liked this video, like it, and stay tuned, because I'll be back soon with more.